Greetings, friends. It's Sage here. And I am filming this message from my living room. I've been debating whether to do my hair or find a better Zoom background, put more of an effort into the form through which I speak, knowing that we humans, we put a lot of weight often on the forms through which information flows. But I feel called to speak to you just from my beat up couch in my living room as I am, because for me, at the heart of this invitation that I am seeking to make, called by a few things. One, it's called the Helen Keller Spiritual Life Collaborative. I also call it an invitation to be love, be honest, and to be useful. And then another way I frame the invitation is to name that worship is life. I sit on my couch as I am because the heart of the message, of the invitation that I am longing to communicate and to gather with others to embody is that every moment of life is sacred, is precious and holy. And that whether we are embodied in abled bodies or disabled bodies, whether we are meeting a moment with our hair done or with our hair disheveled, whether we are in our living room, whether we are at church, whether we are at work, whether we are driving in our cars, whether we are in the United States or in Kenya, wherever we are, and in whatever moment we meet, we are meeting a holy, sacred, precious, beautiful moment. Seems to me the best way for me to communicate that truth is to do so from my own imperfect moments. The invitation of this week, of this celebration of Helen Keller's spiritual birthday, all of this, learning about her story, gathering together and receiving different creative expressions of love, all of this, to me, is about this invitation to really remember our sacred, worthy beingness that is at the heart of this experience of life that we're living. I believe that Helen Keller understood and lived from this awareness of her integral worthiness of being. And in being aware of that and awake to that, she lived an exuberant, powerful, beautiful life. Not a saintly life or a perfect life, but a beautiful, connected life where she told the truth and she loved people and she sought to be of use. This is what I also long to do and to be in my life. And I long to encourage others to embrace this perspective, this embodiment, this realization, and to enter into relationship, community, one that is grounded in what is most important, not particular forms of worship or practice, not particular articulations of story and truth, but a willingness to be present, to be here fully in the moment, and to show up to each other in that way, and then to see what might be longing to emerge. A lot of things in the world right now, a lot of forms, a lot of institutions, a lot of ideas that have held human community in a certain way are crumbling, are showing their weakness. And for many of us, this is terrifying. And so there's a temptation right now to be overwhelmed by that fear. At the same time, there is another invitation. An invitation that actually has been calling to us and being made for generations, thousands of years. Because the limitations of our material world have been known to our ancestors. This limitation, this crumbling is not new. It has occurred in cycles throughout history. But it's really reaching a fever pitch. And in that way, all of this wisdom that has called us to a deeper way of living is now vital to our survival, to our ability to appreciate and embrace and embody this life that we are being given to live right now. This is the moment our ancestors spoke of. This is the time to listen. To listen deeply to these prophecies and visions that have been pointing us all of this time to the sanctuary in our own hearts. And this is the time to listen and to be present to that sanctuary. To see that in here lies a choice. That we have a choice and we can make a choice. A choice to treat life, our particular manifestation, an experience of life, as holy, as sacred, as worthy, as a gift that we receive. Or we have the choice to reject this moment, to reject ourselves, to reject our circumstances, the people around us, everything. And this choice has always been there. And this choice is becoming more and more important to consider. One of the essential teachings of Emanuel Swedenborg that Helen Keller understood, and perhaps more than understood, realized, is that we choose heaven or hell. And hell, it's hard to acknowledge for a lot of us, but hell is something that we choose a lot of the time. And that, as far as I can tell, we have been perpetuating in real time on this planet for eons. It's a state of being that we choose to experience. And as we choose to experience it, it then makes manifest harm, hatred, oppression, lack, want, competition, violence, destruction, cruelty, all of the things we see every day in the media, all of the things that likely filled our days in middle school, all of the things. This choice of hell is one we are familiar with. And each of us has certain hellish patterns that we have been especially educated in, that we don't even realize are controlling our lives so often. Simultaneously, hopefully for many of us, we have been also shaped by the invitation of heaven. We've been given glimpses, and we have had powerful examples of those who have lived knowing their worthiness and bringing powerful change, bringing love and creation into the world. Perhaps we even have patterns of heaven in our own families, as our ancestors have done their part to love their children and cook and eat and gather and dance and play. It's not all or nothing. It's been a mix, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't have many, many people choosing heaven again and again and again. And in my experience, what I have experienced these last few years is a recognition that while I have stumbled into heaven and I have tripped into hell on many occasions throughout my life, I'm starting to really realize the power that exists within me to make this choice that I speak of. And that I want to live my life now, not just stumbling into heaven and in and out of hell and just seeing how it goes, but I want to make the choice for heaven regardless of what's going on the outside. the messages of hell will persist, most likely. They will continue to show up on your news feed. They will continue to rise up in you as powerful reactions when your body is in danger. They will play out in any number of dramas in your relationships and communities. To choose heaven is not to separate ourselves from that drama or to stay protected from it and say, oh, well, I'm going to just create heaven over here and then I won't have to deal with the hellish anymore. To choose heaven is to choose it in the midst of hell's noise. To choose it even in the midst of our own experience when the machinations of hell are erupting in our hearts and in our minds. It's to stop trying to separate everything all the time or to create our safe heavenly community and to keep out all those evildoers. It's to know who we are. It's to choose to love the life that is emerging in us. To be honest about the challenges that are going on. And then to decide what to do, how to be, what direction to move in, where to sit, when to rest, when to act wisely from this real-time experience of life in this very moment as we are. There are huge challenges to deal with and to navigate in the world right now. And my sense is the only way we're going to navigate any of it is to come back to ground, come back into ourselves, come back to the mystery of our aliveness, to start to let some of the stories and the rigid patterns and the rigid expectations that we have been formed in our minds, to start letting some of that, become a little more transparent. Our minds, in many ways, I hate to say this and perhaps I'll get pushback on this, but in my experience, I feels to me like our minds are wired towards hell in some ways. They're wired towards self-preservation and safety, which is necessary. And in that way, perhaps hell is necessary. It's necessary for our survival, or it has been. But there's a limit to it. And I believe we have reached that limit. And I think we need to stop going to our brains solely for answers. We need to integrate and listen to our hearts. We need to listen to the silence, the mystery. We need to realize that we only know this much. Helen Keller has a great quote where she talks about how human beings have only been civilized for like 2 clicks on the clock of time. We really know nothing. I mean, look how it's going as a whole. It's not going so great. And all of that has to do with each of us. There's no enemy to blame and rout out. There's no scapegoat. This is our human condition. This is how we are as a human family right now on this planet. This is what we have to work with. This is what we are called to truly see, to accept, and then decide what we will do next, how we will move from this point. Taking responsibility for embodying that which we really want in the world. Many have said this, and I am coming to feel it and know it more and more every day, that each of us has healing work to do. And that every time a being on this planet, a human on this planet who is, wired for hell like we all do, every time a human being begins to recognize that wiring, begins to quiet their mind and recognize themselves to be more than just these selfish thoughts, and starts to open and look out and embrace the larger mystery. Every single person who does that work, goes on that journey, is a microcosm of this larger whole, and it is useful, it is powerful, it is our salvation made manifest. And I'm witnessing so many people doing that work. And there's a vibration we talk about, there's an energy that's released, a potency. I believe that was the energy that was released in Helen Keller that made her this global celebrity. Her story, her beingness, her embrace of all of humanity was felt. And now it's a time for all of us to do that. It's not a time for new religious movements following charismatic individuals. It's not a time anymore for isolation and solitude. We're starting to see the loneliness and the disconnection that brings. We've been in a phase, I think, where we've all needed to kind of be isolated and be on our own and do our own spiritual work. But now it feels like it's time for us now to come back together. To come back together as unique individuals with our own practices, our own words, our own rituals, our own callings, our own perspectives, to bring all of that back together, to knit this human family into what it is being called to be next. In Swedenborgian theology, there's an idea that God is in the image of a human being. So God's body is like this universal body that has all of the organs and body parts of a human being. And so God's body operates because all of those organs are operating together and each performing its particular use. And God's body is healthy when each of its cells is performing its particular use in a healthy way where it has clear boundaries and relationship to the whole. And I know there's critique of that anthropomorphic vision of God, and I join with that critique, as I often feel that walking in the woods and being in relationship with the trees is just as, if not more, powerful and energetic than being in relationship with other human beings. And there's something to this image of the universal human, the universal body of God, and that all of us are cells in that body. Because as I said, that means when our cells are healthy and well, we impact the whole. And that we all are participating in a different effort. But that effort is not disconnected from others' efforts. Our efforts are not in competition with other efforts. Right now, there is a fever pitch of these old ideas that for one community to live and to thrive, other communities must be put down and destroyed, cut off, removed, demeaned. This is not what brings health. This is not what brings wholeness. We have acted like cancer cells to one another. And there are great forces of energy that are perpetuating this ill health in our world. And each of us is a full and complete cell in the body of God. Each of us has the ability to shift, to choose heaven, to choose to embrace who we are and where we are and who we are with. And in that embrace, to open up our hearts to receive life and to let it flow. So while these forces of competition and domination and material control are very, very large and very, very scary, and we perceive that they have a lot of power, on a deeper, essential level, as fellow beings on this planet, fellow alive beings on this planet, we all have power. Elon Musk may hold a lot more money than I do, but he has just as much internal ability to connect to the source of life as I do. And in many ways, his obsession with manipulating the material world maybe is cutting him off from that power. So who knows which one of us may truly be able to impact and bring the love and the life that God has for us more. Who's to say? We are in a time of significant transition, friends. A time that has been foretold by our ancestors. And it feels to me like this time now, It will break us, or it has the potential to set us free. The old ways, the old stories that we now know cause harm and hurt to ourselves, to each other, to our planet. It's time to stop being mesmerized by those stories. It's time to really surrender and listen to God, to that which created us, to this larger force of life that is and has always been and will always be. In the temple of our own hearts. And I don't know about you, friend, but not only is it time to listen, but it's time to be together in our listening. It's time to join forces, to find one another, and to start to learn how to talk about what it feels like inside to listen to God. It's time to talk about what are these old stories that we're ready to let go of, and to encourage each other in the letting go. It's time to remember how good it feels to be in our bodies as we are, with others who accept us as we are. To feel the real weight of that joy, so much more fulfilling than any of the entertainments or distractions that the world might offer. It's time to feel the joy of that and the power of that. This can be true community that can create new ways for us to live together on this planet, that will help us to weather this transition, and that will help us to live into forms of community that really and truly nurture the soul. So that we don't have to be alone. And so that togetherness no longer has to require that we sacrifice parts of who we are. It's time to learn how to be distinguishably one, unified in our diversity. It's time. It's past time. So this is my invitation, friends. If it resonates with you at all, I hope you'll reach out. If this week has been resonating with you and the offerings and the story of Helen Keller's life, I hope you will reach out. If you are starting to feel the movement of this higher life in you, I hope you will reach out. So far on this journey, I have made some beautiful connections with incredible souls, eclectic ones, many who you have met this week during this event. Just this morning, before recording this, I had a good phone call with my new friend George Majero in Kenya, who shared with me that miracles are happening. That through his sharing in his community of this vision of be loved, be honest, be useful, and the Helen Keller Spiritual Life Collaborative, he is seeing new life being born in his small town in Kenya, Africa. Who knows what seeds we are planting and what will grow. There is a deep invitation to surrender in this endeavor that I am inviting you all into. So I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't know what forms everything that we are going to be involved in will take, because it will deeply depend on who shows up and how the spirit of life flows through. All I can promise is that I will love you as you are. I will be honest with you, and I will seek to be useful in our interactions. I promise that Helen Keller will join us, her words, her insights, her experience. And I welcome you to bring other wise ones with you to this endeavor, that we might start to listen to this message, this calling that has been coming through so many prophets for so many generations. And that we will not just read those words and hold them apart from us, but we will write them on our hearts. And we will start to tap into wisdom that is coming through right now. Right now. Always now. Through the vessel of our particular lives. While we sit on our couch in the living room, while we care for our children, in the United States, in Kenya, in all parts of the globe. We are one human family. That is the truth of it. And we have so much more in common than separates us. My suggestion to you is that it's time to remember that and to tap into the power of love, truth, and creative uses. That this power causes trees to grow and butterflies to fly and the sun to rise and set, and that this power, this energy, this life moves in us too. Welcome to the collaborative, friends. Know you are welcome here.